Welcome back to our channel. The first case we are going to look into this time is the case of Thomas Mair. When police searched the home of Thomas Mair, who killed Joe Cox, he showed out to be a huge collector of Nazi memorabilia. There was found literature in German military history, the Holocaust, SS race theories, and selections of guidelines. A Third Reich eagle ornament with a swastika on it was also found on top of his bookcase. Other literature found in the flat included a book called March of the Titans, a history of the white race, and press cuttings of Norwegian mass killer Anders Breivik and Mrs. Cox. Mair is described as a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde person. He was a loner, and people have told he didn't get visitors very often. Others has described him as very attentive, loving, and a helpful man. His half-brother, who is mixed race, have told they got along well. So one can only wonder what led Mr. Mair to becoming a right-wing with interest in Nazism and the KKK. For years, Mair had obsessive-compulsive disorder, and due to this, he constantly washed himself. Sometimes he used Brillo pads due to his fixation with cleanliness. A family friend told Mair couldn't stand the sight of blood. If he cut his finger, he couldn't look at it. Mair was a patient at a daycare center for adults with mental illnesses. The killing was a politically motivated attack a week before the EU referendum vote. Mrs. Cox was shot 3 times and stabbed 15 times in front of her staff and people who passed by. Thomas Mair is jailed for life for the murder of Joe Cox. Stephen Port, also known as the Grindr serial killer, might be guilty of 58 killings. This means Port could be one of Britain's worst serial killers. Port got arrested after the first death of a young man, but he was set free after a short jail term as his charges was only perverting the court of justice. That means he was set free to kill again. Scotland Yard even admits missed opportunities in catching Port. The 4 victims we for sure know died by the hands of Port were all young men in their 20s. The family of the 4th young man to die tells how they were forced to investigate the crimes themselves, and how they spotted the similarities between the murders. The family have called for the officers to get accountable and plan to take legal action. There has been speculation if it was police homophobia that failed serial killers' gay victims. Top Cop admits the gay serial killer Stephen Port could have been caught sooner, despite 3 bodies were dumped in the same churchyard, and with warnings from the gay community, the police failed to connect the dots and investigate properly. Scotland Yard will make a formal apology to the families of the 4 murder victims and face potential legal action over their failures. If misconduct are proved, 7 police officers could face the consequences. Dog walker Barbara Denham was the unfortunate woman who found 2 of Stephen Port's victims. Within a few weeks of each other, Barbara discovered the bodies of Gabriel Kovari and Daniel Whitworth while walking her dog in St. Margaret's Church in the summer 2014. Both bodies were sitting upright in the same spot against a churchyard wall. After the verdict, Ms. Damon spoke to ITV News and recalled August 20, 2013, where she discovered the body of Mr. Kovari while walking her dog Max. At first she thought the young man was asleep, but as she touched his ankle it was cold, so she knew the young man was dead. Just a month later she found Mr. Whitworth in the same position. As she found the second body, Barbara thought to herself, "Please God, please not another. Please let him be a boy who is drunk." Even though Barbara was quite shocked finding a dead body, she was quite calm as she called the police. The third body was found on the other side of the wall by someone else. meaning it could easily have been Barbara finding that young man as well. Miss Dunham has been walking her dog the same route for 28 years, and she still continues walking the route with Max. Stephen Port, who abused and killed 4 young men between June 2013 and September 2015, used date rape drugs before he dumped their bodies in the street or his local graveyard, is told he will die behind bars. This means Port will join the Yorkshire River, Peter Sutcliffe, Morse murderer Ian Brady, and necrophiliac Dennis Nielsen in the group of prisoners serving life sentences. Port sat motionless as loved one of his victims screamed scumbag at him. As Port was taken down to his cell, families in the public shouted, "Die, you piece of sh*! I hope you die a long, slow death," while others clapped and cheered as he got his sentence. Despite the evidence, Port's parents, Joan and Albert Port, refuse to believe their son is a killer. Joan Port said to ITV News her son had told her he didn't murder anyone, and his mom believes him. She refers to Stephen Port as a kind boy. From his prison cell, Port has written a letter claiming he had slept with a number of high-profile men for money. While escorting, Port claims most of the men he slept with were PMs, but he had one famous client with whom he had a brief relationship. Port claims to have become a prison celebrity as he was asked to sign autographs for inmates, and he added he was asked a few times to sign newspaper pictures. Dylan Roof, known as the Charleston church shooter, has been allowed to be his own lawyer. He will be allowed to represent himself at trial, the judge ruled. Roof is on trial for the shooting of 9 black parishioners at a Charleston church last year. His motive was he hated black people, and as Roof is allowed to be his own lawyer, his first move was to strike a black man from the jury pool. Roof hand-penned a note to the federal judge overseeing his case. On lined notepaper and in block letters, he requested if his lawyer could represent him for the guilt phase, the trial only, and let him represent himself for the sentencing phase of trial. Due to the judge, the request is very unusual. The defense attorney had offered for Roof to plead guilty and serve life in prison without parole, but federal prosecutors are seeking the death penalty due to 33 federal counts including hate crimes. Roof still wants to act as his own attorney during the last part of the trial, when jurors decide whether he will get death or life in prison without parole. This will give him control over what evidence is presented on his behalf when the time comes for the defense to try to convince jurors to give him life in prison. Dylan Roof has remained almost quiet in court after prosecutors said they plan to play the entire 2-hour confession Roof has given shortly after his arrest, the day after the shooting. His answers has more or less been yes or no. His only motivation was a 2,000-word statement he had posted online on the afternoon of the shootings, as well as he carefully had picked 60 photos from more than 1,000 that had been taken. In the essay Roof made, he expresses his thoughts on black people, whom he thought were stupid, inferior to whites and violent. Some of his writings tells how there were no skinheads, no real KKK, nobody doing anything, just talking online. He claimed if someone has to have the bravery taking it into the real world, it had to be him. Dylan Roof expresses how he hoped there would be a race war. Along with racism, Roof's notes and confession shows the then 21-year-old as naive and immature. He wrote a note to his mother apologizing and saying, as childish as it sounds, "I wish I was in your arms." In his journal, Roof writes to both his mom and dad that he is sorry for what he did and that he loves them. Ruth's mother suffered a heart attack while she was watching the opening statement. Her condition is unclear while we are making this report. Peggy Knobloch was a 9-year-old girl who vanished on May 7th in 2001. Peggy was last seen 59 yards from the front door of her home. The disappearance of Peggy came to haunt Germans in much the same way that the vanishing of Maddie McCann while on holiday with her parents in Portugal scared the Britons. Peggy's case were often referred to as the Maddie McCann of Germany. Peggy's remains were found in July 2016 when a mushroom picker stumbled on her remains in woodland 10 miles from her home. Wild animals had disturbed her lonely grave. Forensic tests on genetic materials at the grave of Peggy Knobloch has been confirmed as coming from neo-Nazi Bernhard. A mentally backward man named Ulvi Kulak was found guilty of Peggy's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2004. His conviction was declared unsound 9 years later and he was freed in 2013. The family of Kulak are desperate to learn whether Bernhard is the real killer. Bernhard and his sidekick Uwe Mundlos committed suicide in 2011 when they failed financing their National Socialist underground cell, which they had dedicated to driving immigrants out of Germany. The only gang member left is Beate Scheppe, whom was the lover of both men. Beate is on trial for her role in the murder of 10 immigrants, businessmen, and a policewoman. In German media, Beate is referred to as the Nazi bride. Along with Nazi propaganda, pornography was found on their computers after her arrest. The computers are being re-examined for more clues that might confirm the DNA evidence linking Bernhard to the death of Peggy. There were found numerous children's toys in the wreck of their caravan. Police also found a board game, a perverted version of Monopoly in which the winner was the player who hurled the biggest number of juice into the gas chamber. Bernhard was known to mix in the company of child perverts. One of them, Tino Brandt, was sentenced to 5.5 years for 66 sex crimes involving children. Beate, whose trail has been dragging on since 2013 and still has no end in sight, said through her lawyer she wants to answer questions about Peggy. Beate Scheppe is described using sex to manipulate boys when she was a schoolgirl. Like most manipulative personalities, Beate seemed helpful, nice and kind. But people noted she was vulgar, primitive and aggressive. Scheppe is idolized by Norwegian mass killer Anders Breivik. He wrote to her advising her to use her trail to spread right-wing propaganda. Detective assigned to the case confirmed that after Peggy disappeared, Peggy's mother received a hateful letter written by neo-Nazis. Police described how the letter said, because Susan, Peggy's mother, lived with a man from Turkey, she didn't deserve having an Ariana child like Peggy. The prosecutor will ask for life sentence for Beate with no chance of parole. Oscar Pistorius, a former athlete, became infamous on Valentine's Day 2013 where he shot and killed his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. When Pistorius decided to fire 4 shots through a closed door in his home in February 2013, he gambled with a person's life. Oscar claims he shot in self-defense as he thought an intruder was in the bathroom, but it turned out to be his girlfriend. Pistorius has been convicted of murder by the Supreme Court. The shamed athlete last month won his claims to be moved to a more relaxed prison, aimed at low-risk, non-violent offenders and disabled inmates, where he is surrounded by acres of lush gardens and trees. Pistorius is expected to grow vegetables and work. The former athlete, who is serving 6 years for murdering his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, celebrated his 30 years birthday in cozy jail with new bathtubs and vegetable patch. A website had showed up selling items making fun of the parents of Madeleine McCann. The site sold t-shirts saying McCann's Gym, featuring the slogan Unfit for Parents. In reference to the disappearance, the listing adds fresh fertilities, relax by the pool, lose yourself in our tapas bar. Besides t-shirts, the webshop sold other McCann merchandise, like iPad cases and stickers, with similar text as on the t-shirts. The items has been pulled from the website who sold the merchandise worldwide. The Daily Star could report the items were sold by a man known as Steve, who has hidden his real identity on the Redbubble shopping site. Steve described the product as cruel but funny, and boasted they were made with ethically sourced cotton. Detectives have explored dozens of terrorists since Maddie vanished, including allegations she was kidnapped by a pedophile gang, killed during a botched burglary, or snatched and sold by child traffickers. Scotland Yard has been given extra funding to probe important new lead over theory that Madeleine McCann was kidnapped by a trafficking gang. A new lead suggests that Maddie was snatched by European traffickers after they took photos of her. One witness has previously said the little girl was photographed by a stranger on the beach with her parents before she vanished. But senior cop admit the investigation of the new lead is the last throw of the dice in their hunt. Raymond Hewlett, who was a suspected in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, lived an hour from where Maddie disappeared in Portugal, was jailed 3 times for his wild sex crime against young girls in the 70s and 80s. Before he died of cancer in 2010, Hewlett denied any involvement in the Maddie case, but in a letter from his deathbed to his son Wayne, he claimed Maddie had been stolen to order by a Belgium-based gang. Wayne, the son of Raymond, has told the Sun how he and his partner thought someone might have been watching the house. They would notice a car with somebody in it parked so they could see in. What did they hope to find? If the watching was related to Maddie, it was the biggest waste of money Wayne had heard of, as he told detectives all he knew years ago. Kate and Gary McCann have said that Christmas the 10th without Maddie will be inevitably tinged with pain and longing. In a message posted online, the couple expresses how they hope support from others will help keep them strong. The McCanns has posted a statement to their website and the appeal's official Facebook page. The post said, "This Christmas marks our 10th without Madeleine. There are no words really. Sophie's to say we will try and make it as happy a family occasion as possible, despite being inevitably tinged with pain and longing. The year ahead too is one which we never could have believed or contemplated we would have to face." The couple added, "Thank you so much to everyone who hasn't forgotten about Madeleine." It is now 6 years since a K9 officer and his cadaver dog on a training mission searching for a missing New Jersey prostitute found what would become the first of 11 sets of human remains. The remains of the missing prostitute the K9 officer was searching for were found near a private beach community a year after the first discovery of bodies in 2010, but police insist her death is not connected to the others. If Gilbert, the young Craigslist escort, wasn't a victim of the Long Island serial killer or killers, so how much might her death have been distracted the police from finding the killer? Joshua Salmon believes the killer knows what he is doing. As an example, Joshua gives us the murder of the mother and child whom the perpetrator buried a distance away from each other, on opposite sides of the Nashville Suffolk country line. By this, the killer was able to confuse law enforcement and the medical examiners, as he knew they would have to be investigated by separate countries. According to the press, authorities have linked an unidentified woman's torso found 19 years ago in Rockville Center with the skeleton remains discovered on Ocean Parkway to the Long Island serial killer investigation. DNA evidence confirmed partial skeleton remains found in the bush near Sachs Bay at Jones Beach State Park in 2011 belonged to an unidentified woman whose torso was found in Hempstead Lake State Park in 1997. Investigators have said the Jones Beach remains, which authorities have scooped Jane Doe number 3, was determined via DNA evidence to be the mother of baby Doe, a toddler whose skeleton remains were found east of Cedar Beach on April 4, 2011. Jane Doe number 3 has been called Peaches due to a big heart-shaped tattoo of a peach with green leaves on top and droplets below it on her left breast. Even though both remain unidentified, Peaches is baby Doe's mother. Currently, we don't know if Gilbert's death is still being investigated as a homicide. Some believe her death was an accident that made her family find a private investigator who revealed Gilbert had been strangled. There are some facts to the Gilbert case that don't match the other victims of the Long Island serial killer. The bodies on Gilgo Beach were found buried, while Gilbert was found partially exposed. The Long Island serial killer case has become a popular topic on internet forums like WebSleuth, Reddit, and numerous Facebook groups devoted to the investigation, and in absence of updates from the Suffolk County Police Department, conspiracy theories have filled the silence. An imprisoned ex-Long Island police boss has been named by a lawyer for the family of one Gilgo Beach victim as a possible suspect in the unsolved serial killings. James Burke became police chief 2 years after the disappearance of New Jersey prostitute Shannon Gilbert, who led to the eventual discovery of 11 bodies. A woman who identified herself only as Leanne told how she encouraged Burke at a Springhouse party in 2011. It was near the area where several of the victims' bodies were found. Leanne tells how James Burke couldn't consummate actual intercourse, so he became very angry and forced her into really aggressive oral sex. The party featured booze and cocaine, with James Burke participating in both. Leanne told how the high-ranked cop seemed to like to choke her. He was aggressive, arrogant, and untouchable. In November, Burke was sentenced to 46 months in prison for beating a junkie who robbed the commissioner's SUV of sex toys, a porn video, and a box of cigarettes in 2012. Burke leaned on detectives who witnessed his attack on the junkie to cover up the beating. Attorney John Ray said the story told by Leanne, a one-time college student who turned to prostitution, brings a direct connection between Burke and the poor dead victims laying along Ocean Parkway. If you want to dig deeper into a case, you'll find links to the articles that inspired us for making this video. Don't miss out on any crime news. Follow us on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. And don't forget to slap that follow button and click the bell. Then you will be updated when we have news for you.